I'm Bhakti Lalita and welcome to my podcast, Hari Katha. And in today's episode, I'd like to tell the story of Yaksha Prashna, the story of the virtuous crane in his conversations with Yudhishthira Maharaj. This story comes from the Mahabharata, and it's a true story, it's not fiction. Set 5,000 years ago in India, where things were auspicious and divine. They could speak to the gods and mystical creatures, and they had more power, and such things would go on that you would find in this story. So, one fine day, when the Pandavas were in exile, they were in exile because they lost a rigged dice game and gambled away their kingdom. And the deal was they would go to the forest for 12 years in exile, and then the 13th year they would spend in incognito, where they weren't allowed to be discovered or recognized. So they were at the end of their 12 years when this story took place, and they were sitting under a beautiful ashvata tree in the forest and discussing their strategy for the 13th year. How will they go and be unrecognized by anyone? Otherwise, if they were recognized, they'd have to do it all over again. 12 years of exile plus another year of incognito. So, while discussing this, a Brahmin came to them in the clearing where they were sitting and was distressed and asked for help. He said that a deer had come to his hermitage, and the deer was eating the leaves off of a tree, and in that tree were his fire drills for starting a fire for his fire sacrifices. And the fire drill got caught in the deer's antlers, and the deer got scared and ran away. And the Brahmin's asking the Pandavas for help. Please go and try to catch that deer and get my fire drill back, so I can do my fire sacrifice this evening. And Yudhishthira Maharaj, the eldest of all the Pandavas, said, yes, my Brahmin, I will go with my brothers. We will find this deer and bring back your fire drill. So they set out and followed the tracks of the deer through the forest, and it was going deeper and deeper into the forest. And at one point they saw the deer with the fire drill in his antlers, and Nakul was about to shoot, and the deer jumped away and got away. So they sat down for a break under this big banyan tree, and a little frustrated that things aren't going well, and they need to uphold their duty as warriors to help the brahmanas. And thirsty, they didn't see water anywhere, and Yudhishthira Maharaj asked his younger brother Nakul, please climb the tree and see if you see any lake or water sources in the area. Let's go and get some water. So Nakul went up the tree, and he saw the signs of water vegetation, certain types of palms and trees that would grow near water. So he took a pot and followed this path down into this beautiful clearing where there was a gorgeous lake with waterfalls and beautiful sounds and fresh and lush. And he approached to take some water from that lake and heard, "Stop!" This loud, thundering voice came from the sky. Couldn't see anyone. And the voice said, "Do not drink the water until you answer my questions. I am the proprietor of this lake. If you do not answer my questions and you take water from this lake, you will die." And Nakul couldn't see anybody, and he just didn't believe it, and he drank the water and boom, dead on the side of the lake. Then some time has passed, and the Pandavas, not seeing their brother return, Yudhishthira Maharaj sends Sahadev, "You go and find Nakul and bring us some water." And Sahadev goes and sees this beautiful lake and chanting sounds of water lapping on the banks. And then he sees his brother, Nakul, lying on the side of the lake. And he sees no sign of distress, and what could have happened? I'll find out what happened after taking a little water. And he goes taking the water from the lake, and he hears that voice. "Stop!" Big, booming, thunderous voice coming from the sky. And, "Do not drink the water without answering my questions, or you will be lying dead next to your brother next." And he couldn't see anyone, and he just was so thirsty he drank from the lake and died. Then Yudhishthira Maharaj was there with Bhima and Arjun. "What happened to our brothers? You go, something is wrong." Both Bhima went, then Arjun went, and same fate upon them. They didn't listen to that voice in the sky. They drank the water, and they died on the side of the lake. Then Yudhishthira, all of his brothers have not returned. Something is very wrong. He took his weapons. He went down to this beautiful lake, and then comes closer and sees all his brothers are dead. They're all lying on the banks of this lake, and no sign of distress, no footprints indicating anything, any fight. They didn't even lose their bodily luster or color. They were just looking asleep on the side of the lake and wondering what happened. Didn't see any signs of distress, and was so parched. He wanted to shout. He couldn't shout because his throat was so parched. So he said, "I'm going to just take a little water and then find out what happened. No one could have done this to my brothers, my super warrior brothers." And he goes to the lake and cups his hands, and he hears, "Stop, Yudhishthira." And Yudhishthira hears this booming voice, and the voice says, "Look at me, I'm here in the tree, I'm the crane." And he looks over next to him, there's a gigantic crane, and he's with this ghastly form and firing eyes and very odd looking. And the Yudhishthira Maharaj says, "My brothers couldn't have been killed by anyone, any kind of being, any kind of warriors. No one can kill my brothers. What happened?" And the bird came down, the crane came down, stood next to Yudhishthira Maharaj and stood on one leg. And he said, "I am Yaksha." And Yaksha is a celestial, like nature spirit. You find oftentimes benevolent. They're some kind of creature of the forest, mystical, celestial creature. And he says, "I am Yaksha, and I killed your brothers because they didn't answer my questions. I told them to not drink from the water. They didn't listen to me, and they will die. And if you do the same thing, if you just go ahead and take water without answering my questions, then you're going to be joining them. You'll be the fifth body laying on the banks of the lake. And Yudhishthira, always so righteous and virtuous, saying, of course I will not take without your permission. This is your lake. And please ask your questions. And the Yaksha asked many questions. In some versions you hear 100, some more, some less, but 4 are very famous. And the first of actually they're the last questions of the Yaksha, the last 4. And the Yaksha asks Yudhishthira, what is the news? And this exchange is very esoteric, and sutra-like answers are being given by Yudhishthira Maharaj. And Yudhishthira Maharaj could have said, my brothers are dead, we're in exile, life is tough, but he answered in a very absolute consideration. And he said that the news is that this world is like the months and the seasons are like utensils, and the world is like a big pot. Maya, illusion, is like a big pot for cooking, and the sun is like the fire, and all the living entities, all the animals, the humans, are all the food being cooked by time. This is the news. That was the answer to the last fourth question. Then, what is the wonder? The Yaksha asked. The Yaksha in the form of this crane is asking, what is the wonder? What is so strange? And Yudhishthira Maharaj says, every day everyone's dying. So many people are dying in front of us, our relatives, our neighbors, people we know, we've heard of. But we are not preparing ourselves to die and thinking that we will be here for some longer time and nothing to worry about, nothing to consider, living in this kind of denial that we're here and just keep making ourselves comfortable and buying things online and making, enjoying ourselves. And this is the wonder, the strange miracle of the world, Yudhishthira Maharaj said. And the third of the last questions, the Yaksha asks, what is the path? What's the way out of this? How are we going to free ourselves and get out of this situation? And Yudhishthira Maharaj answered, there's so many variations of truth. You'll find so many opinions, and no one is giving one consensus. But the definite way, the definite path, is to follow the consensus of the pure servitors, the great souls who are surrendered to the Lord. Follow the saints who know how to serve and please and surrender themselves. And the last question is, who is happy? The Yaksha asks. I'll ask you one more question, and who is happy? And Yudhishthira Maharaj answered, who is not in debt? Who has no debt in this world? They're living simply, they're living in their own place without depending on others. They're eating very simple, some vegetables, offering that to God, and taking that and being satisfied. Simple living, high thinking. That is a happy person. And the Yaksha was very pleased with all of Yudhishthira Maharaj's answers, and then says to Yudhishthira, pick one of your brothers. All your brothers are lying there dead on the banks here, and you choose one that you want me to revive. And Yudhishthira Maharaj, ever showing in every situation his righteousness and his virtue and his dharmic qualities, chose his stepbrother, Nakul. And Yaksha said, but that is your stepbrother. That is not your full brother, and that's not your favorite brother either. And Yudhishthira Maharaj explained, we have two mothers. Kunti, I came from Kunti. Nakul came from Madri, my stepmother. And if Kunti has one son, I would also like Madri to have one living son. So both my mothers will have one son. And Yaksha was very pleased. Oh, Yudhishthira, you're always so dharmic, you're so righteous. I will bring all your brothers back. And they all came to life again, and they see what's happening and all taking water. And Yudhishthira Maharaj said, no Yaksha can kill my brothers. Who are you really? And he's asking this form that vanishes and turns into Dharmaraj, his father. And he said, I am Dharmaraj, otherwise known as Yamaraj, who is the Lord of Dharma, the Lord of Justice, and the Lord of the Superintendent of Death, who is the father of Yudhishthira. And Dharmaraj reveals himself, this beautiful form with his red robes, and showing himself, my dear son, I am your father here. And I'm so pleased. I came to test you, and you've passed the test. Please let me give you some gift. Ask me of something. And they all took water, and Yudhishthira Maharaj said, please, first and foremost, we are on a mission to find the fire drill of the Brahmin. And Dharmaraj said, that was me as a deer in disguise, coming to start this pastime, to test you all, and here, take your fire drill. And returns the fire drill to Yudhishthira. And Yudhishthira says, we must serve the Brahmins. It is our duty, first and foremost. We are the warriors protecting them. And Dharmaraj, very pleased with Yudhishthira, saying, I want to give you something else. Please tell what I can do for you. And Yudhishthira Maharaj said, we now have to enter our third year of exile incognito. So bless us that nobody will ever notice us and recognize us, and that we'll be able to successfully spend this last year in exile with nobody noticing us. And Dharmaraj says, yes, I will grant you that no one will be able to detect who you are, and you will successfully pass this last year in exile. And he said, go and stay in this kingdom of Virat and do anything you please, and you will be safe and free. So this is the story. Dharmaraj meeting his son Yudhishthira and testing his dharmic nature, his sincerity, and so much truth and wisdom comes from this story. And some blessing is given at the end of this story, that anyone who takes this story to heart, they will always have a tranquil heart. They will have a happy family. They will never delight in cheating or stealing, and will always be truthful and happy. So this story is very wonderful. I wanted to share this. It's a story that my spiritual master told. We heard this from him. And especially these 4 questions that were answered by Yudhishthira Maharaj, and the importance of these questions, and how so much truth is given there in a very short, sutric way. And wisdom for all of us to learn from and appreciate and take to heart. So thank you for watching and listening and joining today. And may everyone be happy and well and prosperous. Jai Saparika Shishi Guru Gauranga Radha Govinda Sundar Giridhari Ju Ki Jai. Om Vishnupad Shila Bhakti Sundar Govinda Dev Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai. Om Vishnupad Shila Bhakti Rakak Sridhar Dev Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai. Bhagavan Shila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Prabhupada Ki Jai. Shri Rupanuga Guru Varga Ki Jai. Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Harinam Sankirtan Ki Jai. Nitai Gaur Premanande.